My dog Forrest passed away early this morning, right around the time I was getting up to start my Sunday. It was coming. He was at least 10 years old, maybe older. He was a German Shepherd mix, a rescue dog. 6 years ago, a friend of mine who took care of many island animals called me and said she'd found him tied to a short leash in the sun with no water and no food. And she'd persuaded the island family who owned him to let her find a place for him where he could have a better life. Then she called me and said, "I have the perfect dog for you." His name was Forrest, as in Forrest Gump. I wasn't so sure about a dog at the time, especially a German Shepherd, but I needed a friend at that moment in my life, and he needed me, and it was a fit, and somehow my friend knew it. She had a special sense like that. The rest was history. Forrest was sweet and soft and beautiful most of the time. He'd been fixed, so he wasn't going to go out and chase girls, but man, he could be a pain in the ass at others. We lived in Luty's Village before that area was all built up. He had free rein to run around anywhere, and he always came back home. But after the condos started going up, I had to make sure that he would stay in the yard, which would have been great if he would have stayed in the yard, except he was smart, and he always found a way out of the fenced-in yard. So occasionally he would just run down and meet my neighbors, and Wendy and Tom had a schnauzer, and Forrest would try to talk to the schnauzer through the window or the screen door. And he got along great with little dogs, but it could lull you into a sense of comfort. A couple of times it was much worse than that, and I'd see a side of Forrest that was frightening. Now, you can learn lessons from your dogs, just like you know about a person's past. Same goes for dogs. When Forrest was being kept on the short leash, I found out he'd been attacked by other dogs, and so there were some dogs that Forrest just didn't like. And once when my neighbor was walking their labs in front of the barbed wire fence, Forrest went right through it and attacked them. So it became jail time for Forrest, more fence, more leash. But fortunately, we moved to Sandy Bay, near Ed's Laundry. 3 years ago, no one here had a dog. And I used to be able to let him roam around the neighborhood, as I think that's the best way to stimulate a dog. I'd go with him. I'd keep an eye on him from the veranda. And most of the time he'd come back when he was called. But as the neighbors would start moving into the neighborhood with more dogs, that stopped working. And at first, we'd coordinate Forrest jaunts so they could go out and he could go out. And they would know when he was out. And with the other neighbors, it seemed like it was going to work at first. But Forrest couldn't leave well enough alone because Forrest was a bit of a mischievous kind. For instance, he'd climb 3 flights of stairs just to bark through the doors or windows at the other neighbors' dogs. He'd stand outside their doors like a bratty third grader going na 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 na, and he'd work those dogs so up that even today they would start barking if they could catch his scent. The whole let Forrest wander thing eventually ended, though, when Forrest actually chased my neighbor's minivan with their 2 dogs inside. Now, they would take their dogs to work with them, which required putting them in their small van, and Forrest was smart enough to know this. And this one particular morning, he followed the van and their dogs up the hill, barking the entire time, which, of course, caused the dogs in the van to bark back. My poor neighbor, nicest guy in the world. But the only thing louder than dogs barking inside a car is barking dogs in the back of a van. That metal room is like Spinal Tap turning up the volume to 11, like being stuck in a metal trash can with somebody beating the outside with a baseball bat. It becomes impossible to take it. And well, that was the end of that. Now, as Forrest got older, he got a little more mellow, lost a little firepower, and my invincible Forrest became prone to a yeast infection that turned persistent. He'd been treated multiple times over the last couple of years, but unfortunately, yeast can develop a resistance to the medications. And I think that's what did him in. My vet and I talked about this. We were concerned that he was having a bad reaction from the meds, so we discontinued them because they were affecting his appetite and making him lethargic. And at 10 years, he wasn't that mobile anyway. But the last few days became almost impossible for him to get up the stairs. As a matter of fact, yesterday afternoon, I actually had to help him up the stairs, which was a first. But I'm the optimist. Forrest is going to get better. And I gave him a treat, gave him a pet, told him I'd see him later, and went out with some friends to see the adventurer Steve Elkins talk about exploring the mosquitia, poison snakes, and a disease that makes your body eat itself. Now, while we had dinner beforehand, with me, one of my partners was Captain Ron, the legendary Captain Ron, bit of an explorer on his own right. And we talked about the upcoming mango festival that's going to be going on in West End and all the things you can do with mangoes, which is crazy. Mango chutney, mango jam, mango mixology, mango desserts. And then Captain Ron told me about some neighbors in West End who were once making mango liquor, which is great. But something went clogged and blew a hole in the roof when they're still exploded. Fortunately, they were okay, just covered head to toe with mango mush. Anyway, all of those mangoes reminded me of Forrest again, because Forrest liked to chew on mangoes, which was a whole lot better than chewing on my sandals, which he was also really good at too. I'm not sure what it was about the sandals, but this is interesting. He only chewed on the right sandals, never my left sandals. And while it might have been a coincidence for some reason, I don't think so, because over the entire course of my time with Forrest, he ate 5 sandals, always the right one. As the night went on, though, I had a great time, but as the night went on, Forrest was on my mind, so I dropped off my friends, pulled the car in, and as I walked upstairs, I could see Forrest was laying there on the veranda with his nose hanging over the edge. This was his favorite place. So at least he was comfortable, and I gave him a pet and checked on him, and he still wasn't eating. As I said, over the past few days, he'd lost his appetite. But I'm always the optimist, and I'm like, it's going to go away. I knew in my heart Forrest would be better, because he always got better. So I called his name, and that's when he looked up at me for what turned out to be the last time. Now, I was recently reading about the words, the last time. Do you think you know when it's the last time? I know that I don't. We never know when something's going to be the last time. The writer Jonathan Tropper, in his book called This Is Where I Leave You, wrote, "You never know when it'll be the last time you'll see your father or kiss your wife or play with your little brother. There's always a last time. If you could remember every last time, you'd never stop grieving." I was thinking about many of the last times with Forrest, the last time he chased his ball, or the last time he snuggled under my feet during a lightning storm, or the last time we walked on the beach, or the last time he licked my face when I was on the floor with him. And I woke up this morning, and Forrest was gone. Not long. I carefully wrapped him in a blanket, a beautiful blanket from Guatemala, and prepared a place in a sunny spot in the jungle where I thought he'd like it. And then I put him to rest. And now he'll be able to run full out like he used to, appropriately enough. As I finished, it started to rain. My son Sam wrote to tell me Happy Father's Day, a man of few words, my son, and he too has lost a dog, and very poignantly wrote, "Dad, we don't deserve dogs." And he's right. And yet, somehow, they find us, and we're all better for it. The little chicas and chicos who are my vecinos would ask Forrest's name, and I'd tell them, "El nombre es Forrest." And they would say, "Run, Forrest, run." And I would smile and say, "See, run, Forrest, run." That's the view from the veranda here in Sandy Bay, a sunny place for shady people. Unofficially Roatan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.